And so today's program is Immune Health from a Chinese Medical Perspective. And today we have Laine and Katie with Enso Natural Medicine out of Bozeman sharing a little bit about how to promote your immune health from a Chinese medicine perspective. So take it away, Katie and Laine. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. My name is Laine Gallegos. I'm an acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist. I've been in practice for about 5 years, and I was initially drawn to Chinese medicine because of the way that it looks at a whole person in terms of health and wellness. In a sense that we look at people as their mind, body, and soul. And I tend to lean towards treating women's health, anxiety, insomnia. But the great thing about our medicine is that we kind of treat anyone that walks in our door. So I love that freedom and ability to connect with people in a very authentic, deep way.
I'm Katie Cook-Bretson. I have been a body worker for the last 15 years and an acupuncturist for the last 3. And I own and manage Enso Natural Medicine. So that's one of my jobs. And then the other is my favorite, where I get to live in the treatment world. I tend to work more with athletes and physical trauma, and then going into the how we can move into our most vital, strong sense of self when we're doing whatever we do. I primarily work with from a body perspective and then merge that together. So bringing that connection. So yeah, we wanted to talk about immune support and lung health, and also a little bit of what's being successfully used to help mitigate symptoms of COVID out in the world with a Chinese medicine perspective. So we wanted to kind of jump in with a lot of theory, and we would love your participation. If you have questions along the way, we'd love to create conversation and kind of make this as useful and as informative as possible for everybody. So the theory is going to be pretty rich. And then we'll go into a few things to use for application. So you can take some things away to be able to understand how to use them at home. Yeah, so we can dive right in.
And before we get to immune health and lung health from a Chinese medical perspective, I think we need to just kind of, like you said, start with a little theory and a little history of Chinese medicine. Because the lung health and immune health, it's not its own separate thing. When we talk about someone's immune system and lung health, people are the sum total of all of the parts. So we're also talking about how you sleep, your emotional health, how well your gut works, and your environment and how you connect with that. And the health of your environment deeply affects your internal environment.
So Chinese medicine has been studied for over 3,000 years, and with that lineage, we lived more intimately with the earth. So we paid a lot closer attention to our own systems in health in relation to what the earth is experiencing. So imagining even climatic experiences in weather is a lot how we tend to look at our body's experience in health. So we look at, are things windy? Are they hot? Are they cold? Are they damp? And I love what you said about the macro micro.
Yeah, so there's this idea that we have our macro universe that we live within. So we're here in Bozeman right now, and it's typically dry and cold. And today it's windy and a little rainy, and I would imagine wherever you are noticing how maybe you react to whatever weather you're experiencing, because it affects us deeply. Sometimes I think we get on autopilot and have a long list of things to do, and it's easy to not notice. But if you do take take a second, and if you want to do that right now, if you feel heavy in your seat, and if you have a window, you can look at it and just kind of notice how the external world makes you feel. There's this idea that that's the macro universe, that out there, outside of us, and we are the micro universe, and we are a reflection of that.
So even going a little bit further into viruses specifically, imagining that macro, our internal environment, and how viruses are affecting our internal world. And even just imagining a virus that you had in the past, how it affected you. Was it hot? Were you chilly and cold? Were you sweaty? Was it phlegmy, or was it more of a dry cough? Did you have headaches and a lot of rising energy? Or were you lethargic and heavy? And so all of this can kind of represent the external world environment in our own internal experience. We'll go into what symptoms have been experienced throughout the whole board of COVID a little bit later, but just imagining that environmental way to describe virus is a pretty key component.
Hey, Katie, before you move forward, is there, I'm hearing from people that we're having a hard time hearing you. So if you have low tones, it's harder to hear, or maybe if you come closer to the mic. I don't know if it's possible.
You can get closer. We would love feedback on sound.
Yeah, is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry about that. Goodness. Yeah. So, deep connection to nature, the external nature and our own internal nature is a huge precept in Chinese medicine. Just to tie that up, if you didn't hear us blabbering on about it. We like that topic a lot.
So to simplify even further, there's this idea of yin and yang. You may have heard of those theories, but it's very much the black and white, and it's a really simple way to have an idea and understanding that in perfect balance we have both, and they're working in symbiotic relation together. And so the yin is the darkness, it's the quiet, it's the still and content, it's the ability to let ourselves rest and nourish. It's contentment, it's the more feminine energy, so it's more contemplative, more creative, whereas the yang is the expressive, the masculine, the doing, the going, the active, the being. And in health, we have both. So yin is going to be more of our coolant, yang is a little bit of, it's more of our heat. What else did you say?
Well, so does everyone remember, like, I remember my dad had a really cheesy yin yang earring. You know, it's like the black and the white, and then within the black, there's the white dot. And yeah, and the opposite. And so, like, we need both. We all have both. We live in a very yang environment in our Western world, very fast forward, projecting, very action, do. And I think a lot of us need a little more yin to anchor, replenish, calm, cool. And you know when you're out of balance, right? Like, if you don't have enough yin, your yang is not going to be anchored, and it is going to rise. Everyone's rises differently. It looks different for everyone. But it can be agitation, headaches, irritability, anxiety, that sort of thing. And if you don't have enough yang, slow to go, not as inspired, lethargic, that sort of thing. To kind of distill it down simply, make it a little relatable. That's kind of what that looks like and feels. And the yin and yang theory within Chinese medicine is kind of one of our most basic precepts, just in terms of keeping ourselves balanced. balance, that's kind of how disease happens.
Yeah, and in perfect balance, we won't experience disease, which is such a nice way to be like, oh, let's just recreate balance and harmony in the system.
And again, within and around us.
Then we're going to jump into the next theory of different layers of chi. And chi is this massive, huge topic we could talk about for days. But chi is essentially our energy, our unique energy expressed as being human. And anything that has life has chi, but it's our vital life force. It's what animates us. It's what keeps us alive. It's what connects us. It's the spark. So we don't really have a good descriptor in our Western language to describe chi, other than we all know what it is and we feel it. And when we don't have it, we feel kind of meh.
And we're prone to getting sick.
And we're prone to getting sick when our chi is down. And so we have 3 different layers of chi. We have an external layer of chi, a middle layer of chi, and then a very internal layer of chi. And the external layer of chi is our wei chi. It's our defense system to the outside world. So it's the thing that helps, it is our immune system. It's the thing that helps us avoid pathogens and things from coming in from the outside world into our vulnerable self. It's also our emotional backbone, if you will. It's our ability to be like, I'm good, I got this, I can keep going. I don't have that emotional fragility on that surface level.
Yeah, it's kind of like our ability to let things bounce off our shoulder or have tough skin, so to speak. Because we field insults from the external world, whether they're pathogens or emotions that come at us or pollutants. Wei Qi, and we'll get into this more as we talk. There's a physical component, but then within Chinese medicine, there's a heavy emotional aspect as well. And so Wei Qi, it's really this force field that we all have around our bodies to maintain our inner equilibrium, really. And again, there are many things that can weaken. So we're going to talk a little bit about strengthening it kind of as a whole.
And then just to touch on the other layers of chi, because we're going to come back to Wei Qi, and that's going to be where we focus. But just to give you an idea, to create a whole human structure, we then have the next layer, which is called our nutritive chi, or our yin chi. And this chi is our ability to nourish ourselves. It's our ability to absorb nutrients, take in the world, utilize them, and have that healthy bodily function as being human. It's also that ability to stay strong in our emotional state from within. So it's that internal resilience and strength of self that our emotions lie in, and our ability to regulate from the inside out. Yin Qi.
Yin Qi. Yeah, it's a little. So when I first started learning about this in school many years ago, it helped me to picture myself kind of like an onion, and okay, external Wei Qi is that outer rim of the onion, and Ying is midway in, and then Yuan Qi is that deeper core of the onion, that little shape. It's that deep, really protected, because we don't want things, pathogens especially, or emotional insults to travel through the Wei Qi, get into our Yin Qi, and then get deeper into our Yuan Qi, because our Yuan Qi, which is the innermost layer, is more our essence that we're born with. So it's a Qi that...
I've heard it called source Qi.
Source Qi.
Source Qi. It's the source of who we are.
So it's protected very much so, and it's vital, very vital, deep energy. I like to think of it as our pilot light in our body.
There's been talk of it being a bit of our genetics. It's the predisposed who we are. It's our constitution. It's that place of self that is never moved. It's that deep wisdom of self. And so, as you were saying, if you have an external pathogen that tries to come into our body, we have to get through all of these layers. And in Chinese medicine, there's a very specific goal in pathogen defense of when a pathogen is trying to get in, it's trying to break that layer of Wei Qi. So there's that first day of like, I don't feel very good, and I have a little tickle, and I'm a little tired. And that's like the Wei Qi barrier is being threatened. And then that pathogen might come in a little bit further, and now we have a sore throat and a headache, and I'm actually a little tired and feeling a little sick. And that's still in the Wei Qi. But then as soon as it gets into that next layer is when we're having digestive issues, when we're having lung issues, when our organs are actually being affected. And then as the virus were to penetrate deeper, as we're seeing with COVID especially, it's literally affecting that source of self. And it's the deeply reverent place of that touches life to the most like fragile place. So with each layer of qi, we're trying to bolster the body's protection against whatever is coming in from the outside world, exactly where it is in time, which is really important in Chinese medicine, is to treat the moment of where people are feeling that disease.
And I think probably talk about this a little more, but I think when thinking about COVID-19 and how it presents in people so vastly different. From my Chinese medicine, I have my cap on, and that's how I see the world. It makes sense to me why it's showing up so differently in people, because we're all in different places with our health. We all have different constitutions. Some of our Wei Qi is strong, some of it isn't. Some of our Yin Qi is doing just fine, and some of it isn't. So there's, from this perspective, in a sense, it makes sense that it's showing up so wildly different.
Something we didn't touch on that I loved, we've been taking a lot of classes together too, and we recently had it reiterated that the balance of all of those different layers of qi, so your Wei Qi, your defense, your nutritive qi, and your source qi, all ideally are perfectly in balance. And when one isn't in balance, that's when things can penetrate through it easily, or easier. So it is really quite interesting that that source qi, the place where we actually stay alive, is being compromised so much more heavily with this particular virus. So it just goes to show, like, we need to work on all of those layers of ourselves to uniquely in our own constitution, which I love in Chinese medicine. This isn't the topic at all, because this is a master's degree of going into the unique and varying constitutions of each and every one of us, and how we all thrive or are challenged to be able to help bolster that unique place of self. And so if we can really take care of ourselves in that unique, individualized capacity, we can then overcome pathogens. It isn't necessarily specifically about treating the lung itself, it's about treating the whole. So if your heart is being compromised, if your kidneys are being compromised, that is going to indirectly, but directly affect your lung health. Chinese medicine perspective.
Yeah, someone in one of the lectures that we attended via Zoom, someone described the layers of qi working together like music. Like it's one song of health. It does not work without all of them being in sync with each other, and there being communication and this beautiful from the inside out. Our resonance is who we are, and
now seems like a nice place to pause and see if anybody has questions. Just in the recap of the different layers of qi, understanding that
yin and yang.
little yin and yang, and then understanding that individual kind of constitutional place, which we should teach another class.
I'd love to.
So if anybody has thoughts or questions or wants to even just chat for a second about that, we'll dive.
Might be wildly confusing.
Yeah, it might be wildly confusing. If you need clarification or want more depth or more simplicity. Otherwise, we were going to jump into lungs specifically for the next probably half an hour.
Yeah.
And so in Chinese medicine, there are 12 different organ systems that we recognize, and each of them feed different meridians that we then treat in acupuncture. And each of those organ systems also live in specific categories of elements. And so these categories of elements, this is where the PowerPoint would have came in a little bit handy, but we don't need to go too broad. The elements all have either a generating cycle where they feed one another, or a control cycle where they actually literally kind of are taskmasters on each other and control the way in which our system is in balance. So the lungs are in the metal category, in the metal element. And they are specifically on a functioning level in charge of our Wei Qi. They are one of the more delicate organs because they're the only organ that's exposed to the outside world. And in Chinese medicine, they believe that our skin is also a part of the lung organ. It has a capacity to breathe and take in and inhale and exhale through absorption and sweating. So it's that defense layer from the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's an amazing filter because we can't always be in pristine Montana air all the time, right? So our lung has that ability to take in, but also push back out what we do not need. And that isn't just physical, it's emotional as well.
Yeah, so the lungs, being on the surface, are the most fragile organ. And what else? Oh, they govern our qi. They govern our qi to be able to take breath in. So a part of these, how we actually nurture and take care of our layers of qi is through, one of them is through breath. So inhaling literally feeds our body qi to be able to have the energy to then do. It's kind of the simplest form. Something that is often overlooked as a part of our vital well-being, because we're often like feed ourselves and sleep, and that's how we take care of ourselves. But the very first and the simplest thing is to actually learn how to breathe.
And how deeply that connects us to ourselves and each other. Which makes perfect sense at a time like this also when we have a respiratory pandemic.
Yeah.
Really demonstrates that interconnectivity and fragility of the lung.
Yeah, so with the Wei Qi being very heightened right now, we're all living in that Wei Qi defense system. Many people are definitely experiencing more Wei Qi symptoms right now, with that shortness of breath, with that like, is my immune system doing okay? That superficial worry and like concern for the rest of the world, and like, how do I navigate the emotional and like turbulence of this time? The regulation of all of that is all very Wei Qi. And if you'll even notice just how short our breath tends to get when we're anxious about these external worries, it instantly shortens our breath. Say about that.
On the physical. In terms of the meridian of the lung is on our arms. It obviously starts, well, since our lungs are here in our torso, right? The lung meridian starts here and travels down the inner arm down to our.
Scoot this way.
Oh, I'm showing on the wrong.
Yeah. Do it on this one.
Sorry, we're not together, are we? Just through the ethers. So, lung meridian starts here, kind of where our pec attaches here into underneath our deltoid and travels down our arm, inner arm, down to tip of thumb. So just so you have a picture of where it is on your body.
Totally. And I love that because it even just sparked more. It's like, ooh, we can just dive deep now. So it starts here on the surface, but it actually, do you remember the deep part of it? It encircles the lung and it actually comes all the way down to our belly and connects to our kidneys. And so this is a really cool part about the lung capacity, is that the lungs inhale, and then as soon as it reaches mid-body, the kidneys actually grasp the lung chi, the breath, and pull it down further so that we can use that lung energy to be able to power our kidney energy. And in the shortest, briefest description, our kidney energy is that adrenal energy. It's the ability to have willpower and keep going and push, it's that like grr of life. And so without that kidney and lung being able to grasp, or the kidneys being able to grasp the lung energy, because we're living up here in that surface breath, the kidneys have a really hard time grasping that. And then we don't have the endurance because we literally can't burn our breath all the way down into our body. So that's a really lovely connection of just one of the many intertwining relationships between all of the organ systems. That's a really profound one, to be able to make sure that we have the endurance to keep going. And just imagine running a marathon, which we're kind of doing in our own weird way right now. We can sprint really well from right here, but we can't actually run a marathon until we can breathe.
It's a good reminder to take your belly breaths. Breathe into your entirety and nourish yourself on a deeper level.
I saw a question come in. We should read it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read it out loud. Okay, general question. With the onion metaphor, is the outer and even middle layer of chi always unbalanced when there is an issue with the inner layer? In other words, does it always go outer, middle, then inner in terms of disturbance to our health?
That's a great question.
It's a wonderful question. And no, there's not a one track presentation at all, and it can be out of order, so to speak, because of what kind of energy we're born with constitutionally, things we've endured physically, emotionally throughout our life, and then our current situation and our health within that current situation. Like our Wei Qi, if it's really strong, you would think we're not going to get that respiratory illness because our lungs are good. We have our force field, there with little weapons just ready to shield off everything. But if there's a deeper disharmony, whether it be yin level or yuan level, we aren't going to have that force from the inside out necessarily to keep ourselves healthy.
And I would maybe say from the inside in. Which is kind of a really weird way to think about that. But one of my very favorite teachers, who's I didn't actually learn from, he was deceased many years ago, but he always described it as humans, we're either going to have sickness in our spirit, in our physical, or in our head. And that's a little bit different than those different layers of chi. It kind of ties back together. So the diseases of life are either going to be at that very core level, and that's when you're going to see the disharmony with the depth of life, the dissatisfaction of being, and that can just as easily become a disease as the disease of our functioning organs. And so our organs functioning are going to be the like, oh, I'm not digesting right and assimilating right and have a thyroid thing or a digestive thing or a kidney thing. So that's that yuan qi. The wei qi is literally defensive from the outside world. So any three of them can be in disharmony and lead to further disease. So it's very much about being able to bolster all three together to be able to live in hopefully vital health.
Yeah, it's interesting because we'll have patients or people reach out that are like, okay, what herb can I take to nourish my wei qi? And yes, there are herbs that are specific for that, or specific for lung health, but there really is no one size fits all in terms of medicine, whether it be herbs or acupuncture needles. So when someone calls and says something like that, it's like, okay, well, but how's your mood, or how is your digestion? How's your sleep? It's really tricky to simplify how we treat immunity.
Yeah, because immunity isn't often just that one layer. That's a good question. Thank you. So even in that, maybe we should talk about the herbs that have been being used right now and in the millennia. So there's been thousands of years of recorded history of testing different herbs and different herbal concoctions. So it's very synergistic the way that this medicine works. It's not often one, like our Western brains like to think. It's the combination and bringing it all together to create one formula for the exact moment and where you are to help treat where you're at and where your system's at. So is it constitutional or is it literally treating the external? And so we do a lot of custom blends because it's really hard to create one herbal formula for everybody at any given time. And so in that, for the last thousands of years, there's been this that's where Chinese medicine started, is in herbalism. And so from that then was born this whole meridian theory and needles, and that was later on. But the very beginning was how to treat, and very much in the epidemic, pathogenic world, because 2,000 years ago we didn't have modern medicine to turn to treat pathogens. And so that was actually some of the very beginning, like worm pathogen studies. So COVID is actually, interestingly, a warm pathogen, which was written 2,000 years ago, which is so cool. So there's tons and tons and tons of good studies. We like bored our brains to death looking at research from SARS in 2002, and there's been some good studies coming out of China right now with treating COVID. And it's pretty cool that they have had varying levels of success in treating it in adjunct with Western medicine. So there aren't any cases of just Chinese medicine because they're always treating together at this point. And it was pretty incredible research of treating COVID, having higher success rates of symptom management with people who were receiving both Chinese medicine and Western medicine together. So,
yeah, really integrative, which is, I mean, in my perfect world, how it would work, right? In China, that's typically how hospitals operate. Is you'll have your TCM practitioner, traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and then a Western doctor, and they work concurrently, and it's pretty incredible patient care.
someday.
Maybe one day. It's starting.
We're rooting for it.
It's starting. So we can link some articles if you're the kind of person that enjoys reading that kind of stuff. There's some great articles that we can post for you guys that are all about herbal interactions in the body and cytokine storms and just what these herbs do on a cellular level. It's really incredible.
Do you want to talk about any herbs specifically?
Qi, astragalus. Or we could talk about you being things on.
How about both? Huang Qi and then little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so to share a little herbal Chinese herbal medicine information, there are formulas and herbs that are for strengthening Wei Qi. And they have been used for thousands of years to do that. We touched on this for a moment in terms of how our herbs work together in terms if they're in a formula. So a formula is built with a chief herb, deputy that strengthens the chief's actions, assistants and guides that take those herbs where they need to go into the body in terms of organ and meridian, and then some supportive harmonizers that make it either easier to digest or just softens the body to receive that medicine. A formula called Yu Ping Feng San is very notorious and used constantly by Chinese to strengthen Wei Qi. And it does that by lifting our Wei Qi. So there's this idea that our Wei Qi needs to be very upright and defensive to do its job. And the chief herb within this formula is Huang Qi, which in Western herbalism is astragalus, which some of you might be familiar with. It's an adaptogenic herb. A lot of people use it. Kind of hip right now.
Totally.
Rightfully so. And it when you look at it, because a lot of how the old shamans 3,000 years ago figured out how these herbs worked is they kind of communed with them in terms of what they looked like. It's called the Doctrine of Signatures. Won't go too far into this, but if you look at these herbs, you can see what they do and where they go to by their color and structure and
taste and flavor.
Taste and smell, that sort of thing. And Huang Qi is a root, and when you slice it, it has kind of like tree rings, like often roots do, but it mimics those layers of qi. And this glowing color that it is, it just kind of emanates this power outward. It's a beautiful herb. And it fortifies the lungs, it fortifies our pores so that our skin is strong to ward off anything that's coming in from the outside. And then the other herbs in it, which I won't get too specific, this could take a long time, but they're for digestion and warding off wind. So wind, you think about the way we talk about pathogens, it's usually like wind blowing in from the outside. So they fend off wind.
She's such a good herbalist. Like, I don't have anything else to say.
So to kind of land that and ground it though, because I'm sure that sounded very woo to some of you. We'll link an article that talks about Yu Ping Ping San and what it does on a cellular level as well.
And even to simplify it further, the name of this formula in our Western language is called Jade Windscreen. And it's one that we don't recommend that many formulas to everybody, but this one is one of those ones that we could almost recommend to everybody. It's safer.
Yeah.
Like there's almost no contraindications, but it only works when you're trying to literally put up your defenses. It doesn't work once pathogens are in. And that's like such a hard thing to explain to people. It's like, you're not going to get any more benefit from this if you continue to take it once you're in the viral phase. So that's something really to keep in mind. Any Chinese medicine is like, how is it doing right now?
Because if you time it right, take the right thing at the right moment, with a qualified practitioner, it should send you in the right direction. But yeah, the layers that we move through, we need to be in the right place at the right time, or it's not going to really do anything.
Great explanation.
We could talk about
acupuncture point. Let's do it. Seems like a good one. Yeah. Should we even point it out? Systemic 36 is one that has been used in Chinese medicine as a really good blanket point for treating a lot of different things. It's the point, it's called, you know, your just noise. We're all good. Okay. So stomach 36 is like 3 miles is the name of it in our Western language. And it was used for soldiers when they needed to keep going. It's the endurance point in our body. And it's interestingly in the stomach channel, which has to do with digestion and assimilation and the ability to absorb nutrients so that we can have the energy and power to keep moving forward. And so in this pathogenic phase, it's actually used in both prevention and during the viral phase, because it's the one that literally gives our body, it's that storehouse, it's that fuel to keep moving forward, no matter where you're at. So it's actually really used kind of blanketed throughout treating viruses. So if you would ever like to stimulate this point, you can do it through some massage, you could put heat on it, and you could just know that this is a point that would help potentially keep you going if you're tired or feeling overwhelmed or just like you're run down in any way. So on your leg, here's my leg, you can see it very well. On the lateral side of your shin bone, this big long tibia, you can follow this bone up and it all of a sudden makes a little bit of a curve, like you're gonna round the corner before you come to your knee. And there's a nice little hole right there. And your hand or your finger will often fall into it. And if you were to flex your foot up, you'll feel the top of your tibialis anterior, that shin bone muscle, pop right there. So it's right at the insertion of that muscle. And it has, when you push down on it, it has kind of a nervy,
tender.
Mine's tender, yeah.
It's tender.
So it's a pretty specific point that has a nice big well. And so you can work on that. We've done a lot of classes online with Moxa to warm it up. You could literally put your tea glass on it and just warm it and stimulate it that way. You could massage it. If you're going to go do a big race, if you're going to go do something that requires a lot of endurance, this one's a really nice one to stimulate beforehand to help keep your body moving forward. Digesting, which is such a cool thing. Like it literally helps promote digestive flow in your body because oftentimes things like to shut down digestive.
I would just say I use this point on just about everybody I treat. Because I think often we're all a little burnout. This is like one of my favorite burnout points. And again, to reiterate that there's not a one-size-fits-all protocol for us, but that this is one of those points that on most humans completely re-energizes and fortifies our ability to trudge onward. All of the acupuncture points were traditionally memorized by name and poem. Yeah, Zeus on Lee, like 3 miles, just to get you keep going.
Yeah, so maybe we should circle back. We've got 15 minutes into the lungs a little bit more. And my favorite juicy, this is why I went to the specific style of acupuncture school that I did, is because in Chinese medicine belief, there's a theory that there is the physical, like we all know and understand in our Western world, that organs have a function of the physical. But in Chinese medicine, there is also a very strong belief that every single organ system has a function of the emotional as well. And so it's really easy to believe that when you talk about our heart. And our heart is really relatable in our Western world because our heart is where we have purpose. It's where we connect to each other. It's where we find our strength in our knowing that we are connected to ourselves and we have the capacity to love. We have the capacity to be in it together. I think that all of our hearts have been feeling a little heartache lately. We're a little fragile through this last few months. And so I think in our Western minds, we can really easily connect to that heart. And then you had another one too. That's just really relatable.
Yeah, really simple and not even necessarily organ specific, but you know when you feel something in your gut, right? Like butterflies or that worry or that ache. Like we are so somatic in terms of mind-body connection. When we have an emotion, we feel it in our bodies. So I guess I will get organ specific. So in Chinese medicine, our spleen is deeply affected by worry. So I think most people I talk to, you might resonate with this. When you're deeply worried or overthinking, you feel it in your belly. Yeah. And so we can't go into all of them, but each organ has an emotion tied to it. Good and out of balance. I won't say bad.
Yeah, so the lung might actually be one of my favorites. It connects us to, so the more challenging emotion it connects us to is grief. And the virtue of the lung, it connects us to, oh gosh, my brain just, is it wisdom? Inspiration. Nope, I'm kidding. Totally, it's all connected. Yeah, so the lungs, their ability to inhale literally inspires us, and exhale literally calms us. They connect us to the preciousness of life through the fact that the breath is the first thing given to us in life, and it's the last thing taken away. They really connect us to the reverence of what meaning of life is. And they connect us to something. It's the one organ system that goes into more of the spiritual side of self. So it connects us to something bigger or more profound or more connected to the outside possibilities and a little bit more ethereal, not quite so body-based. They're beautiful. To like get to really distill that lung energy down is the most reverent and like precious place that we get to experience in life, where we really just have that sense of awe and that like wonder, and everything is really magnificent in the lung capacity. That's where we get to experience reverence and be moved and really join together. And it's so interesting that the lung is one of the organs that connects us to the possibility that there is death in life. And with that, we hold the preciousness of life, which is pretty powerful. That's like more potent organ systems in my mind. It's big. I wrote some notes, but that feels like enough.
What about questions now?
Yeah.
Any? Scroll it or check it.
Okay, we'll circle back in the last just couple minutes if you guys have any questions.
Yeah. We'll have a moment for that again. So how we're gonna tie this all together and kind of weave it all to so that you can have not just this information flying at you through the ethers, but maybe digest it a little bit and let you feel it in your own body. Is we were gonna do a little breathing exercise because I think we all need to
treatment.
Yeah, give the lungs a little love. So it doesn't matter what it looks like, it matters how it feels. So I invite you to get a little comfortable. Maybe turn off your video if you don't want us to see you or anything. I think often people think meditation has to like look kind of like you have your pretty cushion and your pretty room, and really it's like does not matter. It's an internal thing. So feel into your sit bones if you're seated, or feel into your feet if you're walking or standing. You are invited to close your eyes if that feels safe, or keep them open. It doesn't matter. And just begin to breathe. So without structure, just feel your breath. Catch and release of energy, of oxygen, of chi, whatever you want to call it. Leave it nameless. And I'm going to guide you through a little breath work that is going to get into your lung yin. So circling back to that yin. And that yin is so replenishing and grounding, cooling, calming. We're going to stimulate that. And with this, we're going to stimulate, with this breath technique, the vagus nerve. Throw up a research article if you want it. The vagus nerve originates in your brain, obviously, and it comes down through your face and innervates your organs in your torso, particularly your gut. And your vagus nerve is all about calming your nervous system and stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest. So backing up our little yin with some science here. So feel your breath, feel your body. We're going to do a lengthened exhale. So that's how we turn on our vagus nerve. That's how we nourish our lung yin. So take a breath in. Till to the count 4, 2, inhale. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2. Inhale. You can stick with 4. We're going to lengthen it out a little more. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to stop talking, let you turn your attention inward, and just kind of work with that lengthened exhale. Stresses you out to count, don't do it. It really doesn't matter how many numbers it is. It's more just this emphasis on lengthening out the exhale. Do this for 30 more seconds. And begin to feel your nervous system calm a little. If not, that's okay too. Releasing a little tension out with the exhale. 3 more rounds of breath. Let her open your eyelids if they were closed. Just gently welcome yourself back to your screen. Oh. And just notice how that felt. Don't attach words to it necessarily, but just turn your attention to your inner landscape and see how you're doing. It's your lung yin. I love with Chinese medicine. It's often we turn to medicine because we don't realize how much we have our health in our own hands in some ways, and it can be very simple. We have a question.
Says, one more question. In addition to herbs, does Chinese medicine work at all using food as medicine? And if so, what foods, drink could help strengthen the immune system?
Oh, good question. I just took a great class on that last year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would say we look at food the same lens we look at herbs.
Mm-hmm. Food is medicine,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, as a very blanket, food is medicine. What we put in is definitely who we are. And then using food to a level of being therapeutic is also very common in Chinese medicine perspective. And therapeutic uses of food are consuming huge, uncomfortable amounts of one or more of those synergistic foods together. Uncomfortable amounts.
That's specific food.
The specific to lungs, the two that I remember most are for lung yin, are really lovely foods. I've been putting them in my smoothies every day. Aloe vera and pears are specific for lung yin. So if you have a lot of phlegm, what have you got? Like add some citrus. Citrus would be really great otherwise.
Yeah, citrus moves stuck phlegm. So if you feel mucousy in your lungs or nose, citrus is wonderful. If you feel deficient and feel like you need a boost, like how we talked about stomach 36 at that point, I love advising broths, bone broths, more rich. If you eat meat, a little meat, or root vegetables are great for really bolstering that deeper energy. And like any kind of digestive upset or not having that spark in your digestion if things are slow, ginger tea or things with ginger in them. Yeah, we could do another class on food as medicine, I suppose, from a Chinese medical perspective.
However, I would critique ginger and lungs if you have heat in your lungs, so sore throat often isn't helped with ginger, and that's something that people have a misconception with because it's such a common, I have a sore throat, I'm gonna have some ginger lemon tea. So if you have more of the the chills and cold and body achy, ginger's awesome. If you're sore throat, no ginger.
Yeah, ginger's hot, so it has a yang energy to it. Pears are cooling.
And aloe, yeah, pears and aloe would be a good cooling to the throat. If you go exercise and even having that exercise-induced like shortness of breath, pears and aloe are the two. Cool, I love that question. Any other questions before we wrap it up? So nice to spend an hour with you guys.
Yeah.
I'll throw some notes in the chat bar right now of a couple lectures that a couple things that we grabbed.
Research.
Thank you so much, Katie and Laine. I'm going to open up a poll while people can ask some more questions. It just gives us a little bit of feedback. I'm opening that up right now.
Post. Here. This one is distilled down.
Okay, so
The recording as well. Here we go.